So, hi, Pete.
Hi.
Um, God, that was a bit of an obstacle course to begin with. Sorry about this.
Yeah,
Um,
no problem.
First of all, to our audience, maybe let me introduce you a little bit. Pete Dowling is hosting a very, very interesting channel as a former, and please correct me, Iraq veteran. You have Show Me Your War Face. If you want to see the videos and the channel, the link is below in the description. So, and yeah, we're going to jump right in. Thanks very much for making the time, first of all, and going on this adventure trail,
Yeah,
which I'm
yeah.
sure it will be. And yeah, maybe you want to add a little bit about yourself, and then we can actually start with the cards that you picked today, and maybe talk a little bit around that. Yeah? So over to
Okay,
you.
yeah. So yeah, my name's Pete. I've sort of had, a few mental health issues since leaving the forces, leading towards PTSD. And it's only really been the last couple of years, maybe a little bit longer, that I've actually sort of sought help. So I've been on this journey, and then our sort of paths crossed. And some of your posts and things that you put out and we've spoke before are actually helping me with my journey. So I'm throwing myself into it and trying to help myself as well as help others as well.
Yeah, well, that's a great mission, isn't it? And also probably one of the more authentic things to do if you have lived through it. Um, there is, I think there's more gravitas to being able to relate, to other
Mm.
men's mental health issues. I mean, I myself, as it, I share some PTSD, which I've been coping and working with for, many years. So I know the pitfalls, and it's nice to know that there's a community out there that is supportive. And obviously, the channel Indigo Warrior is meant to be specifically for men, but also a platform where women can actually learn more about men's struggles, the whole stigma still around this whole men's mental health,
Yeah.
silence. So I said this in the previous video and in the introduction, I'm trying to facilitate a platform also where men feel heard by a woman or by the feminine, so to speak.
Yeah.
And where there is a more synergistic sort of dialogue that we can open without judgment, without any of these stereotypes. And yeah, hopefully, create not only a learning curve, but more of awareness, in areas that, even I was completely undereducated in, yeah, or very blind or naive even. So my own learning curve through this, just setting, this Indigo Warrior channel up was incredible. And I have so much more, not that I did lack respect for men before, but I have such a deepening of my respect for the masculine in general and what you are going through. So if we can bridge this gender divide a little bit with that, and also open, other communication, not sure where our audiences are, at what level of their journey, but I just hope it resonates. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so I
definitely.
always say, gentlemen, over to you. So do you want
Yeah,
to give
it's,
us the
no,
first
I
one? Mm.
everything that you sort of spoke about there is sort of hits, quite firm with me. And I do think sometimes I feel that the female can almost help with, males sort of feel more comfortable about speaking about emotions, etc. I think they find it very difficult to speak with other males about emotions because there's that masculinity there, and almost you don't want to be seen as, weaker and things like that. But it seems to be easier. And, I originally found it a lot easier to talk to women about emotions.
Mm.
And more often than not, it wouldn't necessarily be somebody who's really close to me. It'd be somebody who was happy to listen. And it's only really recently that I've felt more comfortable talking to other men who are generally closer to me, so family and friends and things like that. But I think that we can help each other. And I also think there's, and I mean, within my work, I see a lot of young people. And I see, you know, the young girls and the young lads, and it still goes on. There's this, you know, behavior that men, well, young men and young women act in a certain way. And I just think I'd like to go over and just say, look, you know, get together and talk, and there shouldn't be this divide as such. We have to act and behave a certain way around, you know, the different sex. So it's, yeah, it's still definitely there, something that needs to be looked at and hopefully improved.
Yeah, as I said, the learning path is a very long one. You know, if we're looking at all the historic brainwashing, and I really call it that, yeah, on both sides. So there is a huge amount to be done in relearning, unlearning, yeah, which, you know, I'm a big fan of. But also, I know there are such, you know, segmented parts. You know, you have all of these mental health groups for women and all the support there. Then you have very specific ones for men. But I mean, I personally feel we cannot solve this problem in, you know, segregated camps. Yeah,
No,
it will have to be a unity almost, because and I know I come back to something that some might actually find a bit woo-woo, but I say, I see us, you know, when we just talk about humans as, depending on if you're masculine or feminine, just, you know, from your gender or if your, let's say, physical appearance, we all have both energies within us, and they need to come. This is going to lead us nicely into the card. I think it needs to come into a balance inside us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that real, you know, alpha male masculinity that has been very, very ego driven, very testosterone, and I'm saying overladen, yeah, will automatically result in an imbalance of the self-nurturing side. Yeah. So if we're looking at balance inside ourselves, actually, no matter, you know, who you are, those two elements or energies, you know, some people call it yin yang, yeah, they always have to interact with each other in a certain harmony in order for us to be well, yeah, in order for us to also evolve, you know, as us. So I'm really quite a firm believer in that. And I grew up as a real tomboy because I'm an only child, and I was the son my father never had. So for me as a woman, my masculinity was much more, let's say, my tendencies to lead, you know, to be really active and physically, you know, very, very proactive, was always more on top. And so I had to learn to buy into my feminine side more, yeah, or because actually this imbalance really harmed me, and it harmed relationships, yeah. So, and my mental health, yeah. So if we're moving now to, the Indigo Warrior card deck, and for those who don't know yet what it is, I created a special card deck for men to help on the journey of healing, authenticity, you know, self-development. So, and Pete is so kind to, he has already picked a few cards, and we will have a discussion around quite an intuitive, I think, dialogue on what he has actually chosen. Yeah. So over to you, Pete.
Yeah, so I've popped them behind me. And I actually, I've chose two cards. I've sort of cheated really, but there was two that sort of stuck out to me in my current sort of mindset. And my mindset recently has been tested a few times, and I've found myself drifting towards areas that in my life that I'm not comfortable with. So one was balance, and the other card was courage. And the first one I actually picked was courage. And I think courage is a huge word for me anyway, with sort of the background from the military that I have. And obviously a lot of things that have been off in the news with, you know, Afghanistan recently, etc. And the courage that people have to show, people that don't have anything in their lives as such, and they have to show courage to, you know, get the basic human needs, and the courage that the soldiers, the women and the men show together, working as a team to just help people with those basic human needs, I think is very powerful. And on a personal note, I think that courage, I think people see courage as like an act of bravery, but it doesn't have to be an act of bravery. It can literally just be you or another person making the first step to speak about something that you feel that you need to speak about, whether it's mental health related or something else. Having the courage to take a step forwards.
Yeah.
And I think that is ultimately, for me, that's one of the first things, finding that little bit of courage to do that. And I think it's something that we can all sort of look at and think, I need to find the courage from somewhere, from within, you know, from an external source. You know, it doesn't matter. But yeah, that one really resonated with me. Regarding the balance was more about, I'm sort of going through this phase in my life where I just feel like I want to be in the outdoors. I want to go and live in the cabin in the woods and be amongst nature, and you know, disappear is probably the wrong word, but just go away, you know, go in the van and just go different places and sort of really get a feel for life. But I know it's not impossible, but it's near and impossible because there's external things that you have to think about. So then it's about that balance, the balance of work, relationships, you know, your own personal self-love and relationship, which I think we're all on journeys with as well. Nature, the outdoors, adventure, all those things, and trying to balance it in a way that you can actually do some of those things but still have quite a fulfilling life. It's quite difficult to find the balance.
Yeah.
My scales normally go one way or the other, so it's yeah, I'm just trying to learn how to balance things a bit better.
So you could also, I mean, coming back to the courage card, it's I heard a quote once which really resonated. It said, "It's easy to be courageous when you have an audience." Yeah? And it's not so easy when you are just in your own head or just with yourself trying to overcome something that might just be the notion of falling into, let's say, a negative habit, even just that tension of not, you know, giving in and having the courage to actually either try something new or work through this or remove yourself, you know, because as we know, if you're not in balance, and, you know, I had incredible issues with anger tantrums when the PTSD was at its highest. You can also be a danger to others. So the courage to actually take yourself back, or take yourself out for a while until you balance yourself. And for me, looking at the masculine in general, I think the balance is not necessarily in, let's say, it really depends who you are, but I also know a lot of men, also male friends, who over exercise to get the tension out. And that's another trap. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, you know, physical activity and actually, you know, getting some of the aggression out in a physical form, like, you know, some go running or swimming or whatnot. But for that to not to become a trap, or another prison almost, where you then need that as the only outlet to have balance. It's a real fine line, I think, to tread. And obviously, if we're talking mental health here, the courage, I think, to even acknowledge to yourself that you need help, I think is one of the bravest things of all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I agree.
yeah, so and I know how many men and also women struggle with that, but to reach out, to have that, and also courage is also action despite of fear for me. It doesn't have to be bravery or something really heroic. Yeah, it is actioning something regardless of how fearful you are. That in itself is so in essence it's vulnerability is strength. And courage is not the absence of fear for me. Yeah? And I think we have very, very, again, stereotypes and maybe wrong perceptions around what the word in itself means. So it's really interesting what comes up for you. Yeah. And
Yeah,
with that,
definitely.
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I think with you mentioned about the fitness and the balance and thing, I certainly fell into that trap. And your body was feeling very tired, that you had to go and, I used to do a lot of running, sort of 40, 50 miles a week I used to run because I felt that it could clear my head. But what it was actually doing for me was it gave me such a thinking space that when I was struggling with some of my darker moments, it wasn't positive thinking, it was negative thinking. So it was actually pulling me down. And some of my running was, around a period of my life where I did question, my life and question whether I wanted to be here and things like that. And I think at the time I thought I need to go and running to clear my head. But what I wasn't doing that. I was dragging myself to more dark and negative thoughts whilst I was running. So there wasn't a balance there. The physical side of it, I was keeping fit, but it wasn't, the mental health was just plummeting. And then obviously the courage that you say as well, the point you just raised, I totally agree with as well. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying, the comments that you made there about both.
Yeah, well, I used to be quite an athlete, and I know the same trap. And I think the body it's almost like going from one addiction to another one. Yeah. You're just swapping, something for exercise. Yeah. But, if it becomes obsessive compulsive, it's never a good thing. So and what you said about balance, maybe we can hone in on that a little bit. Sort of, where do you feel you might actually need more balance at the moment in your life? And how do you think you could achieve that? Or what are your sort of ways towards that?
I mean, I think that I probably need to be, and I've probably thought this for a couple of years, I probably need to try to be around people, family a little bit more. I've got 2 brothers and a sister. I'm quite close to them, but I don't see a great deal of them. And there's been times where I think we all need somebody around us, and not just on the end of a phone, but a face-to-face, somebody who understands you as a person, potentially, a close friend or a family member. I haven't got that balance where I live at the moment. There's not really a support network at all.
You said that previously.
I found that there's no one really in the local community that either myself and my partner have really sort of connected with, and found it quite tough at times. So that side of my life, that support almost hasn't been there for a long, long time. And there's been times over the last few years I've thought I'd like to be in a position where I can just go and see my brothers or my sister and say, let's go for a coffee and let's have a chat.
Are they very
and that
far
might
away?
mean,
Sorry. Are they very far away from you, where you are?
they're not too far. I mean, they're a couple of hours.
Well, it's
And
still a
obviously
long drive,
it works in both directions. You can't always exert your energy in one way and not really get a great deal back, that it would just be nice now and again to just be able to go and do that without, you know, a huge effort of sort of what you're doing at the weekend, you know, big journey, that sort of thing. I've not yet found that balance, and I'm not sure I ever really will, because I don't want to go and live back where they live, because, you know, I've been away from there for many years. But hopefully at some point down in, you know, in the near future, we can strike a balance for me where I can actually see my family a little bit more. Yeah.
Do you mind me asking, I mean, if we deep dive here a little bit, have you told your family that that's what you want, or that that's what you're hoping for? I mean,
I've had some discussions with one of my brothers. I brought it up with the other guys, but you know, families are always quite complex at times, and they have their own families as well. And sometimes with our family, it's quite difficult to raise any sort of, especially about emotions, because it's from that sort of older generation where you don't really show many emotions. So it can be quite difficult to ever really bring up anything connected to that. But it might be a slow progress, I think.
But I hope you get there. On the other hand, I can very much understand also the isolation, being in the same boat through the whole pandemic. But the one thing that I know and that I've actually had to almost sacrifice was when I started to heal, I kind of broke a generational cycle of trauma. And the only way that I could stay within almost my newfound self and the healthier me, I had to let go of my family. Because every time I went back, the whole trauma cycle just spun off and off again. And there was no relief, and there was never a solution to be had, because their journey was not one where they came to a point of insight that, hey, actually there is something wrong, let's fix this. Again, you know, older generation, you know, we're looking at post-war trauma, about war and post-war traumas. But I saw very clearly when I finally got to grips with what I needed to solve within me to just come to some kind of peace, that half of that wasn't even mine to carry, because it was just transferred from one generation to the next.
Yeah.
And there is again a fabulous saying that you cannot heal in the environment that poisoned you. And you know, it was quite a drastic move, but I don't regret it. I also forgave everybody in those sort of years. So the real breakthrough to be at peace and more at balance with life itself, even if, you know, I can't do everything I want, or when I'm sometimes drawn to something, I cannot action this, is that I have come to a place of complete forgiveness also with myself. And that took courage, because it's not something that they will ever see as having done me wrong or whatever. So the apology, or what we sometimes want from family, might never happen, but I did that purely for me, for my own sanity. And that was a real trigger point into a kind of freedom and personal, I don't even know how, it was a peace. I mean, it was the first time, I mean, it's the only way I can describe it, the first time.
Is it like a weight fell off sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is, when I established that, I then went back, because my dad got ill for a while, and my whole perception of this was completely different. I was no longer in the game. I was more an observer. I could interact, but I could keep my space. So they didn't know what was going on. It felt very awkward for them because they really didn't know anymore how to handle me, because none of those trigger points, even the silences, had the reactions or the momentum that they were used to. And that showed me that I had moved on, I had evolved out of this, and I was really kind of the greatest feat that I ever did.
Mhm.
But family, I know, can be incredibly hindering, and also it can be very dangerous to draw you back into what you were before. Huh? So
I think with my family in particular, they're a good family.
okay, yeah,
They're not all, like a lot of families, not always the easiest to communicate with.
yeah,
You know, and they probably would say the same, you know, about me. You know, I've changed drastically over the years, you know, through experiences, etc. But I certainly feel that I'm on the journey where I feel a little bit more calm on myself, and I very much feel like I am a bit clearer of what I need more of, that balance to make me feel, you know, happy and calm. You know, calmness is something that I'm working on a lot.
right,
Um,
yeah. But
it's
it's
difficult.
also not in the nature of a soldier, isn't it? Because your training is almost the complete opposite. You're constantly in survival and alert mode. Yeah?
Yeah,
So I cannot imagine how difficult that must be to almost let go of that identity. Yeah, that is
it's tricky
so
because
intertwined. Yeah,
yeah, and you've sort of become so hyper vigilant as well, and that's something that I've worked on, and it really spiraled actually again with the running. Is I was doing a lot of running and I was suspicious of everything, you know, out running, and I'd be thinking about what are they up to and what are they doing? Do I need to go back and check and look? And
mm.
it was, yeah, a spiral. So yeah, it's an
You were still,
interesting journey.
yeah, you were still in war, what I call war mode. No,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah,
as this defender, there is something you mentioned before, that you would like to retreat into nature and actually just take yourself away into the woods, which I very much empathize with because I've done that.
yeah,
um, and I think it's an almost an extreme, because the drive is so strong of almost becoming a hermit, never mind what your situation is, just
yeah.
to work on the last bits that need to fall into place. But I also realized it for me it became another hiding place, because I actually had
Yeah.
the opportunity to take myself into nature and sort of just live in a remote forest somewhere in southwest France for a couple of years. And I really, if I wouldn't know what I know now, in hindsight, I know that the real intention was, I would like to be invisible,
Mm,
because it was too painful to be seen in this half finished state, not here nor there, and also afraid of what am I going to become, is this going to work out. So there was almost a notion of, okay, I wanted to withdraw because I didn't want to be seen by the world, yeah, as this imperfect, yeah, not
yeah.
even for me, yeah, or as this vulnerable, or as seeming needy or whatnot. And yeah, I had a horrible time there, believe it, in the most beautiful environment. But I myself was in a terrible state of the depression for 2 years. So again, this balance thing of, you don't have to make yourself invisible to continue that healing journey. Yeah? And I think you have a lovely partner. You do have family, regardless of the community. So there are a few anchor points that already see you and they love you, and they're still around. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
in itself should be a real compliment also to your obviously your journey, but a reassurance. And for me, I know, because the counterpart, obviously what you have seen, is pretty much you can't trust humanity because of what they're capable of. And the hypervigilance, I know very well, this, looking out for danger everywhere before you actually trust and say, well, I'm in a safe environment, so that's the baseline. And I don't need to have these feelings, and I don't need to also coax myself into this constant alert state. So I wonder sometimes, you as a military man, if this is something that you could overcome with the discipline that you have learned to be the other. Yeah, I mean, sort of transferable skills almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I left the military, I was, really compulsive, OCD, really bad. I could spend 30 minutes at the front door checking it was locked. And security, I was really security conscious, and I'd lock my van. I'd go away, and I think I've got 20 minutes down the road. I'd think I need to go back to the van and check it's locked. And I was really with regards to discipline, I didn't seek any help for that, but in my head, I was like, I need to try and conquer this and have that discipline to question myself after a few minutes of checking things and almost arguing with myself to say, no, I've checked it, go to bed, or, leave, or whatever it was. So I think the discipline can kick in at times, but you can certainly have a lot of relapses because you're just relying on yourself. Sometimes I think you just need somebody there to say, just stop, calm down, put the things down, have a minute, have a breath, things like that. You just need that little bit of support now and again.
Yeah, well, I would say, as humans, we are not meant to be living in isolation. It's also not where you evolve, because even with all of this insight, and I've come very far in sort of 10 years now that this is why I am actually doing this. It's almost my end state of as far as my evolution my mind can take me. Yeah. But I also know that the next step will have to be integration with more people, so I can learn differently. Yeah. And also I can apply differently. And I very much think that we all need each other. Not necessarily materialistically, yeah, I mean, but simply to also, realize all of our potential. Yeah. And you can only do that if you mirror that against something completely different, like somebody who is very different from you, to stretch yourself, much further than your own mind would allow. Yeah. And so that's the challenge. Yeah.
Definitely. I talk about sort of a lot to myself about comfort zones and things like that. And, I sort of have this periodic sort of every couple of years where I feel like I have to challenge myself and, move and, sounds bad, but a different partner. I think I've broken that cycle now. Regards work, I still feel that I'm at that stage where I'm in my comfort zone. I feel that I need to step outside that slightly to get, like you say, fulfill potential and grow, and not just be in the sort of the treadmill of, going to the same place every day and doing the same thing every day. Yeah. But obviously there's other considerations that you have to make, money and all the rest of it. But again, it comes back to the word balance.
Yeah, we have to balance here today. Yeah. It is, it's underpinning everything, isn't it? So if you really think about it, there is not a single notion, if you think or act in any way that doesn't have an effect on, someone or something else, even if it's just you. And if that, is, and if you're out of balance at the baseline, yeah, nothing else will really ever work the way you want it. So that I think this sort of Zen mastery of, know thyself and be your own master first, is a huge, really potent thing to, adhere to. Yeah. Because if you can't master yourself, you will always act out and also hurt other people, like you just said, these knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah.
Or go from one extreme to the next, just to prove something, to you.
Yeah. I
So
do find that the sort of external pressures that we all see every day through media and the TV and all the rest of those things, that you have to. I've really thought about this probably for the last few months, about this sort of linear line that the media, if you like, want you to be on. By a certain age, you have to have, be married and have children and have this car and this house and this very linear line. And I'm at that point now where I'm sort of, why do we need to be on this line? Because somebody's telling us to be on this line. Why can't we do this and branch off and do this and do different things? So, and that's where the balance card sort of came about in a way, really. And I suppose in a way it's not a finger up to the government or anything like that, but it's just questioning, it doesn't have to be a linear line. If you want to go and see the world, go and see the world. If you want to go, live in the woods in your van, go and do it. We've got options. And if people are judging you for it, then they're not worth knowing anyway. In my opinion, really, they should be happy that you're happy and you're doing what you want to do. So yeah, that's certainly something I've spent a lot of time thinking about recently.
The courage card that you chose, and you said people should be happy for you. I think one of the most courageous things also that you can do is to acknowledge that certain people you have outgrown, and not just keep them around for habit or because that's not authentic, and that's just not real, and also it's really damaging. So I had to say goodbye to a lot of friends on that journey simply because they were no longer part of my path. That doesn't make them bad people, but it was, being with them almost felt like I was in a straitjacket again. So they couldn't accept me in what I was doing or in the new version. And then a lot of jealousy came out sometimes. And so, also reassuring that your balance cannot be thrown off by anything external. Going back to the two cards, that's a really brave thing to do, and then action that.
Yeah, definitely.
And find a new tribe if you have to, or there are new people, maybe not quantity wise, because they are far and few in between. For me, I'm not sure if it's the same for you and your partner, that I actually resonate with, that I even energy wise want in my life or would want in my life day to day. So I can literally count them up on less than a hand. And that becomes a challenge in itself.
It does. Sorry for the noise. My dog's trying to get out underneath the chair.
You have a little fluffy munchkin. No, we like dogs.
He's a bit where he's quite big now, but he tries to squeeze in small places, so he was under my chair. So yeah, sorry about that.
No, nothing to apologize for. So on the if you're looking at, obviously, the mental health and masculinity side, courage, balance, would you have some insights or snippets you can maybe give the audience that have worked for you or that have helped you through certain darker times where you then found more peace? Or what do you do then?
Yeah, I think it comes, I've sort of many discussions with lots of different people about the steps, and I've almost, as I've spoke about the steps and I've sort of spoke about different things over the last sort of few years, I think the most important step for me is having the time to sit down yourself and ask yourself the questions, such as, how you are. How am I feeling? You know, why am I in this place? You know, why am I drinking or taking drugs or doing too much exercise, and why am I having these thoughts? And just being very, very honest with yourself. And then almost where do I want to be? And you're asking yourself the question, you know, where would I like to be? You know, who would I like to be with? Where do I want to live? All those sorts of questions. And it doesn't have to be all of them straight away. It might be something as simple as, why am I feeling like this? And be very, very, very honest with yourself, and almost selfish to the point where the noise externally needs to be blocked out. And you just allow yourself to ask the questions. And then I think it's important to sort of write those things down, whether it's typing on a scrap piece of paper, and come back to them the next day, because things change and your mindset changes. And keep them and put them on the fridge or wherever you can display them as almost targets for yourself to say, this is how I'm feeling and this is why, and how can I stop that? How can I reduce, you know, the feeling or eliminate that part of my life so I can actually try and manage it or get rid of it so I can have a fulfilling life. It's a very hard thing to do. But it's quite interesting because I've had a lot of people that I've spoken to, and some people that are old friends I've not spoken to for years, who are really going through tough times. And this is what I was saying to them. I said, you do need to be selfish, you know, and I know there's people that probably need you, like your, you know, husbands, wives, daughters, sons, they need you there to help them. But it sounds quite sort of blatant, but I think you just need to say, what do I need right now? What's important for me? And I think until you ask those questions, a lot of it is just masking. You know, I've got a friend who's a nurse, through COVID on a COVID ward in Leicestershire, and been around all sorts of, you know, not very nice things as you can imagine. And she's got a lot of personal issues going on. I just said, like, stop. What do you need right now? And she took some time away from work. She spent some time with her family, and it has helped. It's not removed everything, but it's helped. So it's an honest conversation. It's writing it down or typing it or speaking it on to your phone or speaking out loud. And then once you sort of accept that you might need some help, or you might need to get some self-help, some education through people like yourself or other like-minded people, that then I need to maybe go and talk to somebody. And it doesn't need to be necessarily always a professional straight away. It might just be somebody, and to be honest, in my experience, a stranger who is just prepared to sit and listen. In my case, it was actually the doctor, and I was extremely emotional. I felt almost embarrassed for showing that emotion, but I had to, for the sake of me, I had to open up. And she didn't say words. I was in there for 45, 50 minutes, just an emotional wreck. And she just said at the end, I'm here for you. Let's book in again. And she didn't actually say anything. And I think that is, if you can admit that you need help and then go and find anybody who's willing to listen, I think it just, a little bit of the weight off your shoulder falls, and you think, actually, I can do this. It's different for a lot of people, but I find that a lot of people have spoken to about it, the hardest thing that they found was admitting it and having frank conversations with yourself. And it's tough, but from that, once you accept it and the ball starts rolling, if you like, you realize, actually, oh, I am going out of the house. You know, that's a big step. I have got a meeting with somebody. That's another big step. And then the positivity creeps in and you think to yourself, actually, I'm on this journey now, and I can use my experience and my story and my grief and traumas to try and maybe help other people as well. So you get in that fulfillment and the reward because people are contacting you and saying, I love that message that you sent, or that post, or that video, whatever it is. I've started up a community walk in our local town, which has gone okay. But it's again, it's just a safe space, and it gives you that bit of fulfillment where you think, actually, just by meeting up with strangers going up for a walk is helping my mental health, because I feel like I'm helping others, I'm helping the community, I'm giving back. I didn't go last week because I wasn't in a great place, and I think it's important to also recognize that you don't always have to be giving. Sometimes it's actually, I need to give myself, I need to take that breath and that break, and just learning and evolving from as many people as you can. Yeah, it's a journey. It's not, it's not a cure as such. So some people, it's just to try and manage it in a better way and do the things that you love or you used to love. Try and sort of set yourself a target of saying, I used to love going to the seaside, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter how small it is. And maybe just do one little tiny thing that you used to love that just makes you feel happy, and let that, the snowball grow bigger. So those are some of the things that I think are important.
Well, that's a whole list. Sorry, just a second. I need to get the lights on.
Okay.
Oh gosh, we have, there's the light. Wonderful. Well, we have so many aspects in what you just said that to pick up on, really, for people to try out. But the one thing I did notice, even when you just mentioned it, you have to have, go back to things you love doing. The thing that helped me most to overcome that last, really big hurdle was to get in touch with my inner child more. And there is a huge sort of placebo effect if you become more playful. Because, when you play and you don't take things that, that serious, other solutions actually come. Yeah? And you can carry yourself over this. It's also from a pure neuroscientific, standpoint. When you remember something that you loved as a child, I give you one example, because for me, and I know this sounds silly at my age, you might think, I actually got myself a little tub of, blowing bubbles. I used to love blowing bubbles. Even now, when I sometimes on the street, there's a, or in a carnival and you can see them float, it's just I literally zone out as an adult, and my whole inner child comes out completely. And the same with swinging. We used to have this rope over a river, on a tree, where you just swing and then you sort of splash into the water. Sort of stuff like that is incredibly healing as a, just as a holistic, a wholesome childhood activity that you revive. So I think there's a lot of truth, obviously what you said in doing things and making yourself accountable, and also trying to keep that momentum going. I used to literally have post-it notes in every cupboard, reminding me, or just with a question, just to prompt myself, and it really helped. And obviously journaling, for me was a big thing. I love writing anyway, so I filled endless journals. But so I can relate to a lot of things that, you just said you did. So hopefully somebody out there might pick up on some of those and it might help them.
Fingers crossed.
So and obviously the one thing I just wanted to comment on, which now it still makes me sad to hear that when people talk about actual what is self-love and being more self-loving, we use the term selfish. And it shows how far we have drifted away from, allowing us to be healthy and well first, so we
Yeah.
can be obviously, the best use for anyone else. But also, what I think in the media is very much at fault here is comparison of who you should be or what you should have.
Mhm.
I mean, we have an indoctrination of shame and guilt from literally, the minute you're out of your diapers, yeah? For, being made feel guilty of what we want for us or who we are, not conforming necessarily. So you were shoved into this, you have to be like all the other sheep, pardon me to be so
Yeah.
harsh, but so it's a sheep pen, and it's sheep leading sheep, yeah, and sheep following sheep. So there's no, and that's not what the human spirit is made for. We are
Mm.
all made to be individual. We are all made to partake with all of these unique aspects that we have collated with all of our experience. And it's like this tapestry, yeah. And if you want to make it monochrome, yeah, and then there's courage to be yourself, yeah,
Mm.
in a world or even in an environment or community that actually looks negative on individuality, yeah, and just because they are too afraid, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the base of that is fear for me, and I had to overcome that fear coming from an incredibly conservative Catholic small alpine valley where I was like, a chameleon, an exotic sort of, butterfly trying to hold on to what was me. And it almost
Yeah.
killed me, when people tried to shove me into, I was very rebellious. Thankfully, I had a very strong sense of my own self, even when I was
Mm.
little. But that makes you, well, made you immediately an outsider.
Yeah.
So what you said with, all of these things to be more, I call it self-loving, and step back also from, your duties when you feel you need to, shouldn't be attached with a guilt feeling or shame. And I think those are two really big things to overcome, um, especially in a family environment. Yeah.
Mm.
So maybe there is a dialogue to be had around this with your partner, to almost reassure you, well, actually, I understand, and I don't want you to feel ashamed or guilty when you need to, have a bit of me time or go and sort something out for you, and that's perfectly okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, again, we're talking about balance. Yeah.
Mm.
But I would like to get away from wording taking care of yourself as being selfish, because that immediately for me ties it to a guilt feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I had to literally go through all of these motions, and when you come out the other side, the feeling and the energy that this actually is, it's being unapologetically yourself and
Yeah.
knowing it's okay, because you're obviously not doing this to harm anyone. Yeah. And there's also a real freedom that comes in trusting that this will actually lead to something better than if you would deny yourself what you need. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, again, all in balance. I mean, like a healing or me time. And the the dynamic that spins off that is much healthier. Yeah. Because the world, let's face it, the world will adjust if you are not available for 2 hours a day, 2 days. Yeah? It's not going to collapse, be that from work, as you said, with your friend who is a nurse, to take some time out. There is always a possibility to make space for that. Yeah? The only limitation is in our head, yeah? Or what we might get from others. So yeah, I think it's really important. And maybe men are more prone to not let others know when they need some me time,
Yeah.
because again, you are seen as weak, or you are immediately in this guilt trap of not being a good father, a good husband, or whatnot. So that needs to be, dissolved, I think, and
Yeah.
rethought. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, because but I'm not sure. I mean, do you feel guilty even now? Because I still have some pangs when I know, okay,
Yeah.
at work,
There's times I feel
yeah,
very guilty
yeah,
about lots of things.
yeah,
I struggled a bit when I left the forces. I felt guilty. I felt like I should be there to, give the kids water and shelter and warmth.
yeah,
And I felt guilt that I, you know, I'd not chosen to come away, but I wasn't there, and I felt guilty that I should be doing it. I should be back, and I should be helping people with those basic human needs.
there's a very
And that's one of the
humanitarian,
things I go back to a lot, actually.
it's a very noble thing, obviously, to do, but again, if you're constantly outsourcing self-love to go to someone else, eventually, I mean, you will be pretty much useless and almost a danger. I mean, not
Yeah,
only to yourself, but to your immediate environment and your partner, your family, and if you are trailing down that, depression, um, or anxiety route, every step that you take into this rabbit hole, um, is a step you have to take back out. Yeah, and for that
yeah.
it needs time. You cannot just sort of leapfrog out of that again. So
Mm,
there's a beautiful book, I wanted to show you. Here we go. It's a very thick one. It's called The Compassionate Mind. I send you the link, and it talks a lot about self-compassion, letting go of what you can control, um, self-forgiveness. Yeah, and I think that all falls into that, under that topic. Yeah,
yeah, it might be an interesting read then. I'm not a huge reader, but
yeah,
again, if I try and put the discipline to read, I do read.
yeah. Have you ever tried audiobooks? Because
Yeah, a lot of people have said you should
yeah,
try them, but again, I've not really got round to it. But
yeah.
maybe
Is it?
I really need to maybe set myself that target and
Yeah.
start doing it.
Yeah, or even just experimenting. You can only find out once you listen to
Yeah,
something and say, okay, well, that's for me or not. It's this little
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
comfort zone, out of the comfort zone.
yeah,
Yeah, as we are
definitely.
again. Well, Pete, thank you so much for your time. I know we have overrun a little bit, but I really appreciate your openness, and obviously the incredible life story behind it. Really resonates through, and the journey that you have been on and still are on. And I hope, obviously, I wish you all the best, and we're in touch anyway. But
Yeah, thank you. I really
yeah,
appreciate that.
no, I said, and also just for the audience again, Pete's channel is Show Me Your War Face, and if you are interested in seeing more, go on the link below on and watch some of Pete's videos, and I can tell you it's a heart-wrenchingly beautiful thing to see. Even for me, for somebody to come so far, and go further. So you also need to pat yourself on the shoulder, but give yourself a bit of you know well, congratulations, almost, for every little step of the way, because what you are overcoming and what you help other people overcome, that in itself is a heroic journey. Yeah? So you don't need
Yeah,
to
it's
doubt
very
any.
kind of you. It's very nice.
No,
Thanks. I'm not
you
very
don't.
good.
No, you
I'm not
don't.
very good at taking praise, but
I
I really do.
know. Yes, that's why I'm saying it publicly. So
I
you
do.
don't.
I do appreciate
Yeah,
what
true.
you've done and the help that you've given me as well,
Yeah,
and the support you've given me as well is,
thank
much
you. No,
appreciated.
it works both ways, and I can only, talk about what I've been through, and then put your part in. And if we get enough people together, this is what this is hopefully for, there will be such a variety of, not only tips and stories that others might be able to relate to, that might just get them over that next hurdle, or might just get them out of that, dark place that they find themselves in. And if men can see, like, we're doing here, that there is absolutely, a place to be open and not be judged, and, not be made feel, weak, when you are emotional, which, this is very much so, then, it might encourage them to, also just start talking to others about all of the things they're going through, and that, they keep inside, and, that, so yeah, it's, as I always sign off with, let hope float. Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's really it here. Thank you so much, Pete. That I absolutely delight. Hope you're going to be back at some stage on another
Yes, I will be.
podcast. And
Definitely.
I hope you have a good weekend. Yeah. And
you take care. And
yeah, lots more quantum leaps to make.
yes.
Yeah. on that
Thank
journey.
you very much.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.